Hello everyone, welcome to AOS-CX 10.11 update. I'm Shobna, Technical Marketing Engineer, Aruba Campus Switching. In this session, we'll see about AOS-CX Organization LLDP TLV support feature newly added in 10.11 release. So agenda for today's session is covering the overview of this feature, understanding the use case, configuration and show commands, debugging and troubleshooting, a demo of how this feature works, and what other additional resources required. Let's start with the overview. There are multiple organization-specific TLVs are sent on our LLDP packets. So below are the standard organization-specific TLVs currently supported by our AOS-CX switches. First comes the organization IEEE 802.1 TLV. So this OUA is 0080 and C2. This TLV contains the port VLAN ID information of the switch. Next comes the organization IEEE 802.3 TLV. This OUA is 0012 and 0F. This TLV contains the MAC address information of the switch. Next comes the organization MED, that is Media End Device TLV. This OUA is 0012 BB. This contains the information about the POE and then the media endpoint specific information like voice VLAN. Next comes the organization DCPX TLV, that is the Data Center Bridging Capability Exchange TLV. Its OUA is 001B and 21. So this contains the data center specific TLVs. So prior to 10.11 release, these are the TLVs currently sent by our AOS-CX switches. But our AOS-CX switches does not support organization-specific TLV for our organization Aruba Hewlett Packard Enterprise Company. So this has been currently added in our 10.11 release. So why do we need this organization-specific TLV when we have other TLVs? So these TLVs are IEEE TLVs that are common for most of the switches. They are not specific to the vendor. They are IEEE TLVs. But this organization-specific TLV for Aruba as an organization will be specific only for the vendor Aruba. So let's see the new vendor OEA introduced in 10.11. So this is the packet capture of the LLDP packets originating from our AOS-CX switches. So if you see here, it will mention the chaser subtype as a MAC address, and then from which interface it is coming, what is the TTL, and what is the system name, and the system description mentioning the model of the switch, and then the version currently running in that switch. As we discussed earlier, these are the TLVs already available in the AOS-CX switches. So this is IEEE port VLAN and IEEE VLAN name and IEEE 802.3. We have the MAC address configuration, maximum frame size, power via MDA. And this Aruba Hewlett Packard Company TLV is a new TLV added in 10.11. So it is a vendor-specific TLV added for our AOS-CX switches. So this will mention the TLV type as organization-specific, and then what is the organization unique code for our AOS-CX switches. So for our AOS-CX switches, this will be the unique code 883A and 30. So this 883A30 organization unique ID is only for our AOS-CX switches. So with this unique code, we can easily identify from the LLDP packet, so from which device it is originating. So it is originating only from AOS-CX switches. And here the so subtype is also as 2. It means it is of a switch. So let's see the use case of this feature. So we have seen there will be a organization specific TLV available for our Aruba OS-CX switches. So why there is a need for such a organization specific TLV in our LLDP packets? So let's see an environment where the switch is connected with other switch, like a core switch has been connected with the aggregation switches, or an aggregation switch has been connected with the access layer switches. So in such kind of environment, the admin cannot note down in which port the switch will be connected. So he wants to make sure the switch can be connected to any of the ports in the core or aggregation switches. So in that case, there should be a mechanism to automatically detect the device type and apply a profile. That can be done using a device profile feature. So the device profile feature will be able to identify based on the LLDP, CDP packets. So when a LLDP packet comes, the device profile feature will try to match it with the vendor of the device. For example, this newly added vendor OEA for our AOS-CX switches is 883A30. Once we have a match condition present, like if there is LLDP packets with the vendor OEA 883A30, you need to configure a rule, and then that rule will be applied to such type of devices. So thereby we can automatically detect any devices connected to our switches, and then we can apply the profile. So this profile will contain a user role. So that role will have many capabilities, like it will have the VLAN list, authentication mode, whether that device, it will be a port level device or it will be a client level device, where every client connecting to that end device has to be authenticated. And next comes the policy. So we wanted to control what type of traffic is allowed by that device. Next, the MTU, and then the POA priority, and whether it should be STP admin edge port enabled device, and what type of QoS it is trusted, and PVLAN, and timers, like how often we have to remove this D or this client, and then how often we need to make sure the device is not idle. And then we can also tunnel the traffic from this end device using UBT, and we can have app recognition also possible for this type of end devices. So that way, once we have this devices detected using our device profile, automatically this switch profile, that is the user role, will be attached to this device types. So thereby solving the major headache of admins to identify each and every port which device is connected, and then configuring them with a user role. Let's see with an example how this can be done. So here I am configuring the port access LLDP group as AOS-CX group. Here I am mentioning like the vendor OEA should be 883A30. So only then this type of devices will be marked as a AOS-CX switches. And then I configure a rule, like what is the rule that will be applied once these devices are identified. So I make sure I configure the auth mode and then the VLAN. So there are other list of attributes as explained. These can also be applied. In this example, we are using only two attributes, auth mode and then the VLAN tag list. So once we have configured this, we have to associate these configuration to the device profile. So I'm creating a device profile specific for the AOS-CX switches as AOS-CX profile, and associating the role created and then the LLDP group, and later on will enable this device profile. So once this is enabled, if there is any LLDP packet coming from this type of devices with one vendor OEA as 883A30, immediately that devices will be marked as AOS-CX switches, and then the corresponding user role will be applied to the devices. So far, we have seen about the new organization-specific TLV introduced for AOS-CX switches and then the use case of it. Then may arise a question, why was it not introduced previously and why we were introducing this OUI currently in 10.11 release? Let's see what the background about it. So previously for the device profiling, which is a legacy feature available in AOS-CX switches, we were using this vendor OEI 0080C2. So this is a vendor OEI common to all the switches. So this is a vendor OEI for the port VLAN information in most of the switches like AOS or H3C or Cisco. So this vendor OEA was used by us as well in our AOS-CX switches. So since we didn't have any OUI specific for our AOS-CX switches, we were using this IEEE port VLAN ID vendor OUI previously. When we were using it, we were trying to configure the LLDP group with that IEEE port VLAN ID OUI, and then we were doing the device profiling. So when we were using such deployment, what happened is when in a heterogeneous environment where we had our AOS-CX box connected with either AOS-CX box or S3C or Cisco devices, this device profiling was failing because this vendor OUI will match for all the third-party devices. It's not only specific to AOS-CX box. So even though we wanted to apply the user role for specific to AOS-CX box, because of this generic vendor OUI, it was applied to all other third-party boxes like S3C and Cisco. So our major objective of device profiling to specify which rule to be applied for AOS-CX switches was failing before. Hence, that is the main reason for introducing a vendor OUI 883A30 specifically for AOS-CX switches, not using the generic IEEE vendor OUI like 0080C2. Let's see the configuration and show command. To enable this authorization TLV to be sent to the LLDP packets, we need to enable this configuration LLDP select TLV OA. So once this configuration is made, if you wanted to check whether it is a configuration is applied, we can use this show command, show LLDP TLV. So it will display the list of TLVs currently advertised. Since we have enabled OA TLV to be advertised, it will be mentioned in the TLVs advertised. Like here we can see it as OUI. Next comes the debugging and troubleshooting. This is a small enhancement added as part of the LLDP model. So there is no specific debugging related to this feature, but we can view the LLDP related debugs like what is the LLDP packet sent or how much LLDP packets are received. For that, we can enable the debugging, debug LLDP all with severity debug. And also to view whether this select TLV configuration is applied properly, we can use this diagnostic output diagram LLDP basic. It will display whether the LLDP select TLV with OUI is advertised or not. Let's see the parity analysis. So this vendor-specific OUIs not only are available in our AOS-CX switches, already the AOS switches were supporting this vendor-specific TLV. So it will have this vendor OUI as 0016B9. So this OUI is specific to the AOS switches. And S3C switches was not supporting any vendor-specific TLVs. It was using only IEEE TLVs. And Cisco switch was also supporting the vendor specific TLV. For the Cisco switch, the vendor specific OUI will be 00, 01, and 42. So now let's jump into the demo. For this demo, I'll be using the below topology. Here in aggregation layer, I will have one AOS-CX box enabled with device profiling, and we will see whether it's able to correctly identify the AOS-CX box and apply the device profile role configuration. So for that, I'll be connecting one AOS-CX box that will be sending this LLDP TLV, and then I will have a Cisco switch connected as well. So now I have opened the consoles of both the switch, the aggregation switch and then the access switch. In the aggregation switch, I'll be enabling the device profile configuration, and access switch, it will be acting as a client for this aggregation switch, and it will be sending this new authorization specific LLDP TLV. So let's go to the aggregation switch first. So here I have connected two switches. If you see the show LLDP neighbor info, it will display. In port 1, I have connected a AOS-CX switch. So this is the AOS-CX switch running in 10.11 version. So in port 2, I have connected a Cisco switch. So I have connected a Cisco switch in the port 2. Now let's configure device profile configurations. First, let's create VLAN once that will be applied after the device profile is applied. Now we'll create a rule for the access switch. So this rule will be applied only for the AOS-CX access switch. So I will apply the VLAN and make the auth mode as device mode. So apart from these attributes, as discussed earlier, we have other attributes that can also be applied for the rule. So now let me create a LLDP group matching only for the AOS-CX switches. So here I will match based on the vendor OUI. So our vendor OUI is 883A30. 30. This is the new vendor OAI specific to our AOS-CX switches. Now we have created a rule and then we have created a LLDP group. Let's map these to the device profile. So I'll create a device profile. CX profile. So this device profile has to be applied only for the AOS-CX switches. So I will associate the LLDP group created before and I will associate the rule created before. And will enable this device profile. So we have made the configuration. Let's see the recap of the configuration. The first is the creation of the LLDP group. So this is the group that will able to identify the AOS-CX switch. So based on the newly created vendor OEA, we'll be mapping the device as AOS-CX switch. Next, we will create a rule that will be applied once the device profile has identified this as a AOS-CX switch. So we have created with auth mode and VLAN access 2. Next is the device profile part. So we have created the device profile and associated the LLDP group and the rule created. So let's see whether the device profile application is successful. Yes, it is successful. If you see show port access clients, this device profile is currently applied only for the port 1 and for the access switch. If you see here, show LLDP neighbor info, still we have both the Cisco switch and then our AOS-CX switch connected. But the device profile was applied only for the AOS-CX switch. It has not been applied for the Cisco switch. So this is the device profile is based on the interface MAC address. So this is the chases ID MAC address for the AOS-CX switch. So this is the way our device profile can easily identify the switches connected as AOS-CX switch and apply them the corresponding rule. So you can also check using show port access, device profile, and interface. They have option as all or interface. So it will display whether the in which interface this device profile is applied. So it is applied to port 11, what is the MAC address and what is the LLDP group and whether the profile application is success or failure. So previously it was not happening because we did not have any vendor OEA specific to our AOS-CX switches. We were using only the generic IEEE 802.1. So now let's see what is the configuration that was needed in access switch. So we were not using any of the configurations in the access switch. It's just an untouched switch which was running in 10.11 version. So it is just a factory default switch. The reason being is we have this LLDP OEI enabled by default. So this LLDP select TLV OEI configuration is by default enabled in all of our AOS-CX switches from 10.11 version. So we don't even require this configuration to be enabled. If we wanted to disable only, we have to use this configuration CLI, or else this configuration CLI is available by default and we do not need to even touch the switch for the device profiling to happen in the aggregation switches. Hope everyone understood the feature. So let's start using this feature to easily identify the AOS-CX boxes connected to the aggregation switches and then apply the corresponding rules. So this feature will easily help us to identify such devices using this vendor-specific OUI available specific for our AOS-CX switches. Additional resources. For more details about device profile and LLDP configurations, you can refer the AOS-CX 10.11 Fundamental Guide. So this guide will contain chapters for the device profile and LLDP. Thanks everyone for watching this recording. If you have any further queries, do post your queries in our Harrods community.